most people spend their lives chasing happiness, as if it is something waiting for them in the future. They say, I will be happy when I achieve this, when I receive that, when life finally goes my way. But happiness does not live in the future. It is not something you find. It is something you create moment by moment within yourself. And today, I want to share with you 3 powerful ways to create happiness every single day. Happiness is often misunderstood as something that exists somewhere ahead of us, waiting to be discovered at the right time, under the right conditions. From a young age, you are taught to believe that happiness is a result of achievement, of recognition, of finally becoming who you think you need to be. And so, without even realizing it, you begin to postpone your happiness. You tie it to moments that have not yet arrived. You tell yourself, I will be happy when things settle down, when I succeed, when I feel secure, when others see my worth. But if you observe closely, this pattern never truly ends. Each time you reach a goal, the mind quietly shifts the destination. It creates another condition, another requirement, another reason to wait. In this way, happiness remains just out of reach, not because it is far away, but because it is always being placed in the future. This creates a subtle but constant tension within you, a feeling that something is missing right now, a sense that this moment, as it is not enough. And when you live with that belief, you begin to overlook the only place where happiness can actually exist. You overlook the present moment. The truth is, happiness is not something you find outside of yourself, and it is not something that arrives with perfect circumstances. It is something that is created through your relationship with this moment. Right now, in the middle of ordinary life, there is an opportunity to experience peace, contentment, even joy. But it requires a shift in how you see things. Instead of asking, what do I need to be happy? Begin to notice what is already here. The breath moving in and out of your body. The quiet moments between your thoughts. The simple fact that you are here, alive, aware. These are not insignificant details. They are the foundation of life itself. Yet, the mind often ignores them because it is too focused on what is missing. When you start to bring your attention back to what is present, something changes. The need to chase begins to soften. The urgency to become something more begins to loosen. You realize that happiness does not require a perfect life. It requires your presence. This does not mean that you stop growing or stop setting goals. It means you no longer depend on them for your inner state. You no longer say, I will allow myself to feel good only when everything is in place. Instead, you create space for happiness now, even in the middle of uncertainty, even in the middle of imperfection. And in doing so, you reclaim something that was never truly lost. You realize that happiness is not a reward for the future. It is a choice, a way of being that is available to you in this very moment. If you are willing to see it, your mind is rarely still. It moves constantly, drifting between what has already happened and what has not yet come. It replays conversations, revisits mistakes, holds onto moments that are long gone. Then, without pause, it begins to imagine the future, creating scenarios, expectations, and uncertainties. In this endless movement, something essential is lost. You lose contact with what is actually here. You may not notice it at first, because this pattern feels normal. It feels like thinking is necessary, like it is helping you stay in control. But if you observe closely, you will see that much of this mental activity is not useful. It does not solve problems. It does not bring clarity. Instead, it creates noise, tension, and a quiet sense of restlessness that follows you throughout the day. When your attention is trapped in the past, you carry emotions that no longer belong to this moment. Regret, guilt, resentment. These are echoes of experiences that have already passed, yet they continue to shape how you feel now. And when your attention moves into the future, it often brings worry, fear, or expectation. You begin to live in imagined situations, reacting to things that have not even happened. In both cases, you are not truly living. You are either remembering or anticipating, but rarely experiencing. The present moment becomes something you pass through without awareness, as if it is only a bridge to somewhere else. But happiness cannot exist in memory, and it cannot exist in imagination. It can only exist in direct experience. It can only be felt when you are fully here, when you bring your attention back to the present. Even for a few seconds, you begin to notice a different quality of experience. There is a sense of stillness beneath the surface of your thoughts. There is a quiet awareness that is not disturbed by what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow. This awareness is always available, but it is often overlooked. You do not need to force the mind to stop. You only need to stop following every thought. Let them come and go without attaching yourself to them. Gently return your attention to what is real right now. The feeling of your breath, the sensation in your body, the sounds around you. These simple anchors bring you back. And each time you return, you strengthen your connection to the present. You begin to experience life more directly, without the constant filter of the mind. In that space, even ordinary moments carry a sense of depth and calm that cannot be found anywhere else. From an early age, you are conditioned to believe that more is better. More success, more recognition, more possessions, more approval. The mind learns to measure life through accumulation, constantly asking, what else can I gain? And for a while, this pursuit feels meaningful. It gives you direction, a sense of purpose, something to strive toward. But beneath that movement, there is often a quiet dissatisfaction that never fully disappears. No matter how much you achieve or acquire, the feeling does not last. There is always something missing, something incomplete. As soon as one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place. This is the nature of desire. it does not end by being satisfied. It simply shifts its focus. And so, without realizing it, you become trapped in a cycle of wanting, achieving, and wanting again. This constant seeking creates a subtle tension within you. Your attention is always leaning toward the next thing, the next improvement, the next moment where you believe you will finally feel at ease. But because your mind is always moving forward, it never fully arrives. Even when you get what you wanted, you are already looking beyond it. In this way, desire keeps you disconnected from the present. It tells you that what you have right now is not enough, that who you are right now is not enough. And as long as you believe this, a sense of lack will follow you no matter how much your external life changes. Letting go of unnecessary desires does not mean you stop caring or lose all ambition. It means you begin to see clearly which desires are truly meaningful and which are simply habits of the mind. Many of the things you chase are not essential. They are driven by comparison, by the need to prove something, or by the fear of not being enough. When you start to release these unnecessary desires, something inside you becomes lighter. The pressure to constantly become more begins to fade. You are no longer running in every direction at once. Instead, there is space to breathe, to observe, to simply be. In that space, gratitude naturally begins to arise. Not because you force yourself to feel grateful, but because you are no longer distracted by what is missing. You begin to notice what is already here. What was once overlooked becomes visible again, and in that simplicity, there is a quiet sense of fulfillment that does not depend on anything outside of you. The present moment is often overlooked, not because it lacks value, but because the mind has been trained to look elsewhere. It is constantly searching, comparing, evaluating, trying to find something better than what is already here. In this search, the present becomes invisible. It is treated as something temporary, something to pass through on the way to a more important moment in the future. But if you pause and look closely, you may begin to notice something subtle yet profound. Every experience you have ever had, every feeling, every thought, every memory has only ever occurred in the present moment. Even when you think about the past, you are doing so now. Even when you imagine the future, it is happening now. There is no other place where life unfolds. And yet, most of your attention is not here. It is absorbed in mental activity, in stories, in interpretations. You are physically present, but mentally somewhere else. This creates a disconnection, a sense that life is moving past you rather than being lived by you. When you begin to return to the present moment, even in small ways, the quality of your experience starts to change. There is a certain clarity that arises when you are no longer caught in constant thinking. You begin to see things as they are, without immediately labeling them or reacting to them. This does not make life dull or empty. In fact, it reveals a richness that is often hidden beneath the noise of the mind. Things begin to feel different. The sensation of breathing becomes more noticeable. The sounds around you feel more alive. Even silence carries a certain depth that you may have never recognized before. These are not extraordinary experiences, yet they bring a quiet sense of contentment that does not depend on external conditions. The present moment also has a stabilizing quality. When your mind is lost in the past or future, it often brings emotional turbulence, regret, anxiety, anticipation. But when you bring your attention back to what is here, those emotions begin to soften. Not because you are forcing them to disappear, but because you are no longer feeding them with constant thought. This shift does not require effort in the way you might expect. It is not about trying to control the mind or stop thoughts completely. It is about noticing when you have drifted away and gently returning again and again. Each time you do this, you strengthen your ability to remain present. Over time, this becomes less of a practice and more of a natural state. You begin to live with more awareness, more sensitivity to what is actually happening. You respond to life instead of reacting automatically. There is less urgency, less inner noise, and more space between your thoughts. In that space, something begins to emerge, a sense of ease that is not dependent on circumstances, a quiet stability that remains even when life is uncertain. This is not something you create through effort. It is something that reveals itself when you are fully here, no longer distracted by everything that is not. Endless desire often disguises itself as motivation, as progress, as the natural movement of life. It tells you that you are moving forward, that you are growing, that you are becoming more. But if you observe carefully, you will begin to notice that much of this movement is not rooted in clarity. It is rooted in a subtle sense of lack, a quiet belief that something is missing, that something needs to be added before you can finally feel complete. Or this belief shapes the way you experience everything. It turns each moment into a means to an end. What you have is never quite enough because your attention is always fixed on what comes next. Even when something good happens, the mind does not rest there. It immediately asks, what else? It looks for the next improvement, the next achievement, the next form of validation. In this way, desire becomes endless, not because there is so much to gain, but because the mind has learned to avoid stillness. It fears the simplicity of having nothing to chase. It equates stillness with stagnation, with a lack of purpose. So it keeps creating new desires, new goals, new expectations, just to maintain a sense of movement. But this constant movement comes at a cost. It creates restlessness, a feeling that you must always be doing something, achieving something, becoming something else. There is very little space to simply exist as you are. And without that space, there is no true sense of peace. You may begin to notice that even your desires are not entirely your own. Many of them are shaped by comparison, by what others have, by what society values. You see what others are doing, what they have achieved, and without questioning it, the mind adopts those desires as its own. It tells you that you should want the same, that your life should look a certain way. But when you follow desires that are not aligned with your deeper nature, they do not bring fulfillment. They bring temporary satisfaction at best, followed by a return to the same feeling of emptiness. And so the cycle continues. To see this clearly is the beginning of freedom, not by forcefully rejecting desire, but by understanding its nature. When you understand that chasing endlessly will not lead to lasting contentment, something begins to shift. The urgency starts to dissolve. You begin to question what is truly necessary, what truly adds value to your life, and what simply adds noise. And in this questioning, many desires lose their power over you. They no longer feel as important, as urgent as they once did. As this happens, the mind becomes quieter, not because you are suppressing it, but because you are no longer feeding it with constant wanting. There is less to chase, less to prove, less to compare. And in that quietness, a different quality of experience begins to emerge. One that is not driven by lack, but grounded in presence. So when you begin to see all of this clearly, something within you becomes still. You no longer feel the same urgency to chase every thought, every desire, every imagined future. You begin to understand that life is not asking you to become something else, is inviting you to be fully present with what already is. Happiness, then, is no longer a distant goal. It is no longer something fragile, dependent on outcomes or conditions. It becomes something quiet, steady, always available beneath the surface of your experience. In moments of difficulty, you return to acceptance. In moments of distraction, you return to the present. In moments of restlessness, you return to simplicity. Again and again, not perfectly, but consciously. And over time, you begin to notice a shift, not in the outside world, but within yourself. There is less resistance, less noise, less need to prove or to chase. And in that space, there is a natural sense of peace, a quiet happiness that does not demand attention, yet never truly leaves you. This is something you build moment by moment through awareness, through letting go, through presence. So wherever you are right now, whatever your life looks like, pause for a moment, take a breath, and recognize that nothing is missing from this moment except your full attention.